Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of WTF What the Footy.
Before I say anything, let's just enjoy a chorus, song of the week.
I'm enjoying it. The blue. I really should learn the words.
But the version I have has the lyrics on it. So
I'm Robert Gregory. That's Joe Rutter. This is the song of the week, and whose song is it, Joe?
Well, I'll show you whose song it isn't. It's not the Carlton Blues song.
You just gave every Melbourne Demon fan, including yours truly, the backhanded compliment.
Pick for
that is an answer. That is not the correct answer. I'm sorry.
That is not the correct answer. It is the Melbourne Demons theme song.
Thank you.
To play it this week.
Thank you.
Not the least of which is your Melbourne Demons played.
Thank you.
Carlton Blues came back from a 44-1 deficit to win. We'll get into that later.
No,
but I had to eat my crow. I had to play that, make that the song of the week for you. But as you noticed, I am wearing the Guernsey.
And and we talked about this Saturday. So I'm over at Joe's house Saturday night, Sunday morning. We're watching some hoop. We're watching West Coast, who a couple weeks ago wasn't going to win a game. Now they've got 2 wins under their belt. An exciting victory over the weekend. We're watching that. We had breakfast casserole. We had cinnamon rolls. We were doing it upright. And I screenshot a photo, and Melbourne was down, 35-1 or something like that at the end of the first quarter. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have to change my final thought. Then it all turned around, but we will get to that. We will get to the finals of the week. We will get to Melbourne's historic comeback against the Carlton Blues.
I believe 5th largest in Melbourne history.
Almost makes you forget about St. Kilda last year. Almost. Not quite, but almost.
Well, and the reason I'm wearing this shirt today is actually I thought of this. If I thought of this earlier, I should have confiscated your Guernsey from Melbourne.
Oh,
worn it as tribute to you and as a punishment to me.
like losing the mayor's wager.
Exactly. But I'm wearing mine because
that's good thinking, Joe.
Yes. I thought of that, but there was no way we could do that, hook it back up before taping this podcast. I broke out mine in solidarity of my team, of Michael Voss. I haven't given up on him yet. I know everybody else has. And I'm using this power of positive thinking, this Rudyard Kipling quote to paraphrase, while all others are losing their heads, I choose to keep mine. I'm not giving up on my coach. I'm not giving up on my team. I'm not giving up on my season.
Well, we're going to talk about Michael Voss, okay? Yes. And the only difference is it's not up to him whether he keeps his head. It's other people's decisions whether he keeps his head. And the fact that he still has his head after yet another blown lead escapes me. Just blows my mind. Anyway,
I think we talked about this Saturday as you were leaving that we expected by this point of taping that he would be out of a job. Hasn't happened yet. I don't think with them playing one of the earlier games this week that they will make a move that quickly. I think it would have happened already had it been done. Yeah. But he is on the shortest of leashes. I can't say I blame the new the CEO, general manager. I think his name's Graham Wright. I can't blame him for wanting, if he wants to make a change. But I'm going to support my guy while he's still here.
Well, I mean, good for you. I don't. You know what? I don't know what to say about your optimism here because that was just a disgusting display in the second half. I mean, Carlton has been bad in the second half for what now? A year and 3 weeks, right? Yeah, but that was just the most egregious display of coughing up a lead that I've ever seen.
And the worst part was, I mean, you knew it was coming almost. We were laughing about it as it was happening. I was laughing and cringing. But then they scored 2 goals to turn it from an 8-point lead to a 20-point lead. And I thought, okay, they got it figured out. They're not going to collapse.
Yeah.
No, They give up 7 straight goals in the final 10 minutes. It was reminiscent of the first week against Sydney in the third quarter. Just a horrible display by the team.
We will get into Michael Voss a little bit later. When we run down the scores and stuff like that, I'm gonna do a little more rubbing it in. But we promise not to go 3 hours today, right? I mean, the way these shows have been going. Yeah,
within going to prime time. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. So let's begin our WTF segment, and let me start by saying that when we named this show, it wasn't necessarily because we would find something WTF worthy every week. It was just a funny name, What the and the F is footy. I mean, it's just a little hey, isn't that funny? Isn't that clever? Let me tell you something. We're now, through 3 rounds, 4 weeks of gameplay. And we have yet to have a week where we're like, gee, what are we going to talk about that is WTF worthy?
We are at no shortage. There are so many things on the field, so many controversies. It's I hope it keeps up all year because it's going to make this for an entertaining podcast, at least in our
is today's example. Before I get into the specifics, and people that are watching maybe already know what we're going to talk about, but is today's example the most ridiculous of the 4 weeks so far?
I would think so. And the thing is, we had a choice of several things we could have picked from. We're all WTF worthy. But this one, I imagine that we're going to discuss here, probably the most egregious of them all.
North. Okay, so if you've probably guessed by now, North Melbourne's Tristan Sherry got himself a bloody nose, wasn't happy about the way he was being treated by Essendon during their win.
Yes.
His form of protest was not to just wipe the blood off his nose, wasn't just to show it to people. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just to wipe it on the Guernsey or the short of your opponent, which has happened before. That's the precedent. Well, I shouldn't say precedent. There's really no precedent for this.
Yeah.
But that's what happened before that caused the problems. No. He wipes it on the face. He wipes his own blood on the face of Essendon captain Andy McGrath.
Yeah, and if this were the 1970s, we probably wouldn't be discussing this. But in the days since AIDS was first discovered and this became a big issue, and they take great pains to, anytime there's blood, make sure it does not get spread around anywhere. For him to do that was so tone deaf. I don't know what he was thinking. I know he's remorseful, but
he wasn't thinking. He wasn't thinking. It was his brain had leaked out of his nose, and that is what he wiped on McGrath, I think, because there's just no other explanation for doing that.
Yeah, and we found out today he got a 3-game suspension. I think both of us are surprised it's that short. A lot of people were thinking 4 or longer. It hasn't happened. 3, I get, and I guess he's not appealing it. They'll take his suspension. But I was surprised it wasn't a stiffer punishment.
Yeah, like I said, this has happened a couple times before, but in those instances, I think the last one was 2002. So I mean, we're talking almost a quarter century ago.
Yeah.
That's the kind of boneheaded move this was. Okay? Talk about being in a fit of rage for being treated badly on the pitch.
Yeah.
But in those other examples, the blood was wiped, like I said, on the Guernsey or on the shorts, and both of those instances garnered a 1-game suspension, which at the time was considered fair.
Yeah. But when you put it actually on the other person's body, on their face, that you've escalated to an unbelievably high level.
And that's the point the tribunal made in their decision. The fact that A, it was on another person's skin, B, it was close to the guy's mouth.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, not that it was good to begin with, but you're talking about the guy's mouth now, and I don't know, is there a difference between bleeding on someone and spitting on someone? It might be, there might not be. I'm not a medical professional. It seems to me that you have the same risk of spread. But to put your blood near another guy's mouth, I mean, come on. What are we doing here?
Yeah,
What the footy?
What the footy? It is a degrading act. We saw that in here last year. Pittsburgh player got spat on, Jalen Ramsey, and I believe that I can't remember the length of the suspension, but the player that did spit on him did eventually warrant a suspension. You know, and you've got that. You've got the whole wow stuff the week before from Patrick Voss. Now, granted, it's a violent sport. A lot of collisions. There's going to be blood. You see it every week. You know, they're in there. They're mixing up. They're hitting each other. They're jumping. You're going to have collisions like this, but you've got to use better decorum. You can't just lose your head totally and spread your blood on another opponent.
I would think that because the sport is so physical, and at times violent. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah,
it is especially in the box in front of the goal. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is an absolute violent area. I mean, that's pretty much going over the middle in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Okay. To know that you've already experienced that, wouldn't that be enough? Like wouldn't you be used to that kind of stuff?
I would think you would think so, especially you're a veteran type of player, and one of the bigger players in the league. I mean, I believe he was a ruck. He's a tall guy. He's used to such physicality. Very surprising. Yeah, surprising the way he handled it. And maybe it was frustrations because the way his team was playing well and they were winning. But yeah, to do that and to be on one of the surprise teams in the league and now to not be available for 3 games, that hurt your team.
And I'm gonna get into that. I'm gonna get into that part in a second.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the crying, taunting, Patrick Voss and Harrison Petty. What was that? That was just last weekend, right?
Yeah.
That was just last weekend. We had an episode of alleged homophobic slur in the VFL with St. Kilda's Lance Colliard. That happened, I think, Saturday morning our time? So you've got this homophobic slur. You've got what I'm calling Tristan Sherry Bloody Mary. Okay? You got Bloody Mary working on the captain for Essendon, okay? Yeah. Coming on the heels of the Voss taunting, coming on the heels of, don't forget Adelaide's Itzhak Rakeen and his homophobic slur last year at the end of the season that darn near cost him the entire playoffs.
Well, I think it pretty much did because they lost their first 2 matches and we're done.
And that was it.
Yeah.
So my question is, are we seeing a downward trend in decorum on the pitch, or is this just business as usual? And if it is a downward trend, why? Why are we seeing this at the beginning of the season? Why are we seeing such egregious things going on the pitch?
And it's hard for us to evaluate because we are not seasoned AFL watchers, which is why we do this podcast. We try to educate ourselves, and we want
couple of Yanks shooting blanks.
Yeah, but yeah, it's that's what we have seen so far. Now, I don't know if this is the decorum is a reason that I've seen AFL attendance is down the first few weeks. That there's it's over 25% drop in attendance. Maybe fans are frustrated by some of the things they're seeing. It's I think if you're going to promote your sport and try to get it out there and get more interest in it, you can't have incidents like this. You really have to watch, and it's not a good look for the sport. And they're really trying to they should be trying to clean it up. And I think it means stiffer punishments and harsher fines for some of these players, because as we talked about before we went on air, $1,000 fine in this day and age, even if you're making $500,000 a year, it's not cutting it. You've got to make it at least $5,000-$10,000.
Yeah, this is
players really feeling it.
Yeah, and this is where I was going to go with it. I mean, this is what I was going to be saying about to answer this question. And the phrase I botched last week, is now I can't get it again. I lost it again. Oh, all publicity is good publicity. Yes. That's the phrase that I keep botching, apparently. Yes. I can't remember. Is that true? Maybe, maybe not. But like you were saying with these punishments, $1,000, which was actually brought down from $1,500 because he wasn't going to appeal. He got done a $500 favor, basically a 33% favor. That's Patrick Voss and the crying and the taunting. 3 games for this is about 1/8 of the season. Now, that's like being suspended 2 games in the NFL.
Yeah.
Okay? For basically throwing your blood on somebody's face. To me, 3 games is not throwing the book at you.
No.
Especially when the 3 games he's going to miss are Carlton, Brisbane, and Richmond, which, by the way, sit 16th, 13th, and dead last on the ladder.
And those are 2 of those 3, with the Brisbane being the exception, the 2-time defending champion, should be winnable games.
You would think
winnable games for North Melbourne, where you'd really like to get there and and make a statement that you're not the laughingstock that you have been for the past several seasons.
I mean, we were talking. It's good that this didn't happen in May, because North Melbourne has a stretch of Sydney, Adelaide, and Gold Coast, which is far different than the 3 games coming up for the Roos.
Yes,
in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, and it's it's something they have to take. Now, I don't know what the CBA is, if they have to negotiate that. I mean, I know they send it right to a tribunal. I don't know if that's tied in with the AFL or if that's a separate governing body. And I don't know whether these fines, where they're coming from. I don't know if they're negotiated in a CBA, but it's something that has to be investigated. And I think, if they do have a good union, they would want to have these things taken out of the game.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, none of this serves anyone. I mean, I guess there is an inherent shock value that may perk the interest of the mob, as it were. I mean, I don't think it's going to help attendance. But as far as on-field quality and integrity, you can't be bleeding on people. You can't be doing it right in the middle of the field. Yeah. You can't be doing this kind of stuff. But yet the AFL doesn't seem interested in putting the hammer down or throwing the book or even making a statement. Listen, this stuff will not be condoned.
Yeah, and also you got to wonder, I know it happened very quickly, but where are the referees in this? Shouldn't the referees be involved when they see a guy bleeding and say, wait a minute, call time, stop the match for a minute, get this guy cleaned up or get him off so he can get attended to, then get everything back down. Maybe the cooler heads prevail while you're getting this attended to, so you're not having that close physical contact once somebody starts bleeding.
People hate regulation. They will tell you that up and down. Yeah. They hate additional rules. They hate regulation from third parties, but it's behavior like this that invites the regulation, invites a third party to step in, invites the additional rules. And nobody wants that. I mean, you're talking about the referees, and I'm thinking, well, for them to step in, don't they have to be wearing gloves at this point because there's blood involved? I mean, I can't imagine they're just going to dive in and try and break all this up. Now, they were forced to after he wiped the blood on McGrath's face. Yeah. But still, this is what we're talking about here. I mean, what kind of regulations are going to have to come down to stop this kind of stuff?
And I don't know if the referees have gloves in their pockets.
I don't either. Yeah.
I don't know if they have towels that they could use to wipe some of this off. But you see blood from time to time, and it's because of you having these contacts. And it's not a lot of most of them are incidental, not done maliciously. Players get hit, they bleed from the nose, sometimes they bleed from the mouth. These things happen. Guys get cut. I think they've got to do a better job of maybe policing this so that you don't have these. Once you see some blood, you're able to get in there, stop play, and so incidents like this don't happen.
Yeah, Sherry claims that he was being called some bad words, including the C word.
Oh, geez.
Which I don't think is crazy.
Yeah,
I think it was something else.
Yeah,
but I mean, still, don't you have to manage your emotions a little better at that point? And you're winning.
Yes.
Is this happening because he's playing Essendon? Does this happen if they're playing Sydney? Does this happen if they're playing Gold Coast?
Maybe not, because they're probably losing at that point, and he doesn't want to be taken out of the game.
I mean, and that's kind of stuff you got to think about in this situation.
Yep.
We will be following along with this. Again, the league has yet to disappoint in making the name of our show what it is. WTF? What the footy?
And now we can transition from that into a sport we know so well,
Oh.
the NFL, making its debut in Melbourne next season in February, coincidentally, right before the semifinals, which could present an issue for the availability of the MCG should there be a bunch of Victorian teams, I guess, in the semifinals. They would have to do a quick turnaround or push it maybe back a day.
So they're going to play the weekend of September 11th, which on the NFL schedule is relatively what? That's the first. Is that the first weekend?
Yes, it is the first. It'll be the second game of the season. The first
second game of the season. They're getting a decent game.
Yeah.
They're getting Niners Rams.
Yep.
Which is an NFC West battle. I mean, these are two teams that should contend for at least a playoff spot. These are two teams that are going to fight for the NFC West title. I saw one Australian writer call it a blockbuster, and honestly, I could not tell if he was being sarcastic or not. I don't know if I would call it a blockbuster matchup, but it's a decent matchup. Right?
It's a decent matchup, and it's an interdivision matchup, which are so big. Which
it's an important game.
Don't like to see those at the beginning of the season. I like those to be contested later in the year.
Right.
If you're getting this big matchup that, these teams want to get off to.
They're getting a decent game. They're getting a decent game. They're throwing in the cricket ground, so they're going to expect 100,000 people.
Yep.
I mean, they're already talking about ticket shortages, and I'm thinking to myself, well, it's not like it's not like all of our games are played at the Rose Bowl. I mean. 100,000 people, that's a pretty good crowd for a pretty decent game that they're going 10,000 miles for to play a divisional game, which I think is just kind of crazy. But it was pointed out, like you were saying to start this topic, that weekend is the semifinals of their playoff fixture.
Yes.
What they call the finals. Now, their semifinals is what here in America we would call probably quarterfinals, right? Because their actual semifinals are called preliminary finals.
That's right. That is right.
Right?
Yes, you're correct.
So, point being, the NFL is invading. And you're going to see the blue and yellow of the Rams. You're going to see the red and the gold of the Niners. You're going to see it everywhere around MCG. But it's in the middle of their playoff season. And despite the fact that attendance is a little bit down right now, there's no doubt that place will be full for a semifinal should a Victorian team need that spot.
Yes. And, they have other stadiums obviously around there, but that's the biggest. That's the crown jewel of Australian football. That's where they hold the grand final. And they're going to showcase it. That's where they can get the most people to watch the NFL product. So, the bigger question, I think, for the Australian fans is, are they going to get shortchanged because of this game being there? Are they going to have to, push their games back, make do? How is this going to coincide with the teams that are still alive playing in these potential games? And how quickly can they turn the stadium around to get it back from an NFL venue into an AFL game?
Yeah, into a footy atmosphere. They said they'll have about 30 hours. Should a Victorian team need the MCG, about 30 hours to turn it around. And they've done it before. They've done it before with rugby matches, having to turn that around to footy. And I know rugby in the NFL isn't the same, but the shape of their field is similar. Yeah. The length and the dimensions of their field is similar. Where they put the goalpost is similar. So they've been able to do it before. Another option is moving it to Marvel across town. But, the problem with that is that place, despite the fact it has a retractable roof, which I'm sure did not cost $1.13 billion, by the way. Yes, I'm still on that. Marvel seats 53,000 for footy.
Yeah.
53,000, 100,000. So I appreciate and respect that you call it the jewel, but let's call it what it is. MCG sits, a lot of people. That's a lot of butts paying a lot of money.
Yeah, and I've never been there. Obviously, neither of you. We don't know if it's old and dilapidated or if it has the modern amenities that maybe the Marvel has, but they do fit a lot of people in there, which is why they hold the grand final there every year.
Joe, we're not going to get invited if you keep calling it Dilapid. If you keep if you keep comparing it to Wrigley Field or something like that, Oh, the MCG, it's old. We want to get invited there, Joe. I'm just saying.
I know we do.
I'm just saying. So anyway, that's what's going on with the NFL. There's a little bit of a WTF there. The fact that they're, and then the other thing is, what if not one but two Victorian teams need it? So now they're talking about playing Saturday, Sunday. Again, they're talking about Marvel, and honestly, I don't think it should be that big of a deal. I have trust in the MCG. I mean, they do footy, they do cricket, they do rugby. They should be used to this. 30 hours might be cutting it a little close, but I have a feeling that they are competent enough that they can make this work.
I think they should be able to. Now, the big question on our end should be, from the United States perspective, what kind of musical act, what kind of guests are they going to have trot out for this big event? We know one person it probably won't be because she's booked 2 weeks later.
I was going to say she's busy.
Yes, she is
She's busy prepping.
Unless they break her out again, but I don't know why.
The first daughter of Australia, no less.
Yes, the first daughter, Kylie Minogue, going to perform before the grand final.
Yeah, she's going to perform. That was announced just after. This might be a decent segue. It was announced just after Melbourne's historic rally against Carlton on Sunday morning, our time, with our bellies full of breakfast casserole and cinnamon rolls.
Yes,
and
brownies too.
Well, there were some brownies consumed too.
Yes.
And not, not those kind of brownies. Okay, they were regular brownies. It's fine. It's fine. Kylie Minogue though is going to be the performer. So Snoop was last year. It's quite the departure, right? They go from Snoop to Kylie Minogue.
When was Katy Perry? A year before Snoop?
I don't know if it was a year, but I know she was in the last, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
That she performed. Yeah.
But Kylie Minogue, still a big deal in Australia. And
my God. Huge.
Yes.
Huge name. This is a huge get. Oh, the excitement. You could tell the excitement on Twitter X.
Yeah.
When they made this announcement. They're like, oh my God. I mean, like I said, she's the first daughter of Australia, for crying out loud. What? I mean, I'd actually like to know whether she's performed before. And if she hasn't, what has taken them so long to book her?
Yeah, why have they not booked her for this? Because you would think they're starting to shoot high when you're going with the likes of Katy Perry and Snoop Dogg, and then you get her in there. It's pretty.
I mean,
nice
I would assume she is beloved in every corner of that country.
I would
every corner that tropical cyclone Norel hit last week, as it did its lap around the country and tried its best to rain on all these games.
But they got all these games in amazingly.
They did.
Weather did not seem to be an issue in a lot of places. I wish maybe they'd have had a nice downpour in the third quarter of our game. Maybe they'd have called it early and I could have saved a little face and won that. But no such luck for the my beloved Blues.
Well, yeah, allow me the opportunity to rub it in a little more. That was the finale of the weekend, Carlton, Melbourne. And Melbourne was down, 38-1 after the first quarter?
And it ballooned to 44-1.
It was 44-1 at one point. The announcers kept making that distinction. It was a 43-point advantage for the Blues. The D's did not kick their first goal until a minute and a half remaining in the first half? Something like that. They went, 38 something before they kicked their first goal?
Well, I believe they got it with 5 minutes left, and they got their second one right before halftime because they had 12 points, I believe, at the end.
Yeah.
Maybe they had a little more than 12. I thought they had 2 goals in the first half. No, maybe they only had 1.
Well, and this is where we get into the conversation about how they keep track of time.
Yeah.
Down under, how they have a cumulative timer, where here in the States, we see the clock, and that's how we judge the time. Yeah. Their first goal, because I did make note of it, their first goal came at 38-35 or something like that. So that's like a minute and a half to go in the half.
Okay.
Which could very well be another 5 minutes until halftime, the way they keep time down there. But anyway, So Carlton's got another first half lead. And we've been here before.
Yes, we have.
But this is Melbourne. The team that didn't show up last week against Freo. The team that had 1 point in the first term. The team that could not find their way out of an open box the first half.
And it was stunning how bad Melbourne played in that first half and how well Carlton controlled the play, controlled the pace. And I didn't expect Carlton to collapse again, but I also didn't expect Melbourne to mount such a comeback because Melbourne looked as decent as Carlton looked. Melbourne looked awful.
Oh,
and I thought it would just
atrocious.
be a struggle to get to decency to get within 20 points.
Atrocious. I used the hashtag disasters again, which I used a lot last year, especially in the second half of the season when there was just no signs of life from the Demons. Just no signs at all. And a good point was made a couple times on social media that despite the fact that Melbourne had played such a bad first half, they did tighten up defensively in that second quarter. Now, I guess we can argue until the cows come home whether that was part of the difference in the game. But the fact remains that Carlton went back into a shell for the second half, and before you know it, the unthinkable was happening.
Yeah, and Carlton came out, and they even mentioned, I think it was Max Gawn playing in his 250th game,
yes,
who mentioned and talked to them at halftime and said,
"Oh, hey, that's right.
Remember, this is a team, Carlton, that has choked away leads before. Push them. Just keep pushing them, make them break, and we'll be okay." And sure enough, that's what happened. They came out, they pushed the play. Carlton back on its heels, playing afraid again, playing not to win, but trying not to lose.
Yeah,
trying to protect the lead. You know,
and Max Gawn again had another phenomenal second half of this game.
Yes,
as did Causey Pickett, as did a couple guys. Okay, but Max Gawn at the half, A1, top shelf, top tier leadership, reading his guys the riot act before the horn sounded for that second half.
Yeah, and it got their attention. And whatever Michael Voss or whoever, Patrick Cripps, whatever they say at the half, they got to change that up, or maybe just don't say anything. Make them stay out on the field until the next quarter. I don't know, because what they're doing isn't working. I believe it's a negative 147 point differential in the first half of games through 3 games. That's crazy. And you go back to the beginning of last year, and even I think they're 12-23 since they had I believe 11-4 record in 2024. They've won 12 they've only won 12 of 35 games, and in a lot of those games, they've blown 20-point leads, at least 8 of them, I believe. And of those 12 wins they've had, I think I read somewhere 8 were against the likes of North Melbourne, Essendon, Richmond, which means they can beat the worst of the worst, but they can't beat anybody else. And
the thing to me that's striking is that, so, I mean, yes, Melbourne rallied from a 43-point deficit at one point in this game. But the thing that's striking to me is this wasn't a walk-off win. Melbourne caught Carlton and then ended up winning by 23.
Yes.
I mean, they made it look silly.
They did. And like I said, when Carlton stemmed the bleeding, got it back to 20 points with about 11 minutes left, I thought, okay. But then Melbourne just kept coming and coming and coming.
Yeah, they didn't stop.
To score 7 goals in that last 10 minutes, that's almost pretty hard. That's a goal every minute and 20 seconds or so. It just was, they were piling it in, and just like they couldn't be stopped.
Well, and that's what we were talking to ourselves about, is that it seemed like uncontested entry after uncontested entry after uncontested entry into the Carlton box. And you're just sitting there and you just see these blue jerseys just kind of standing around, and you're just like, what are they doing?
Yeah, they just, it was almost like they had quit. Like, it was reminiscent of what they did against Sydney in the second half when they just had no answers and they got caught flat-footed, and Sydney just ran them off the pitch. And it was embarrassing, and that is the reason why a lot of people want Michael Voss gone.
Well,
He's still there.
It's more than a couple people, and I don't understand it. I don't understand how somebody in this situation with the recent history he's had. I mean, if you needed the straw to break the Carlton's back, you would have thought this would have been it. Because, like I said, they blew a 43-point lead. Okay, I mean, 1 point in the first quarter, and they ended up with 100, which is insane.
It is.
So you blow a 43-point lead. You end up losing again. This sticks with me. You end up losing by 23. So I mean, at some point, your boys quit. At some point, your boys just quit on you.
They did,
and they keep quitting in the second half. There is not one coach alive in this country that would have had what happened last year, what's happened in the first 3 weeks of this year, and then what happened on Sunday morning. There's not one coach in this country that would have kept their job. Not one coach that would have even gone to bed with their job.
Yeah, and I still think he's gone soon. Maybe with the fact they had 4 days off, they played 5 days or whatever, that they have such a quick turnaround for their next game.
Yeah,
he didn't want to pull the trigger right now because he wanted to give a little time to get somebody in now, or maybe he's waiting until they have their second bye later in the year at the halfway point. But you're going to lose a whole season if that happens.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And you know what? You've got a staff behind him that you can at least for a couple weeks give someone the interim tag and give them a chance to maybe change some of the culture that's going on there. Because that's part of the discussion now, is that it's rotten from the inside. Because as one of the commentators was saying on the radio side after the game, there's like, this can't be an issue of fitness. Okay, I mean, these guys are some of the best conditioned athletes on the planet.
Yeah.
Okay, and they play the same. The games are the same number of minutes every game.
Yep.
And their first halves are phenomenal. And if they're getting tired in the second half, wouldn't the other? I mean, you know what I'm saying. And they
were also coming off.
Of fitness. They're saying that this is just so rotten from the inside at this point that you almost have to blow the entire thing up.
And don't forget, Carlton was coming off a bye, so they were rested. They couldn't claim fatigue from playing all these weeks in a row. They were coming off a bye, and you could use that maybe as coming out, if you had a slow start, but they didn't have a slow start. They came out of the gate strong.
Oh my God, they came out storming.
So yeah, they have to look at it internally. You have to look at leadership. Patrick Cripps has come under a lot of fire. Again, I can't say it's not justified because it seems to be. And there's a lot of players on that team right now that the names that we've heard the last few years, the veterans there, that just seem to be a part of this problem. And they're trying to get younger and bring in fresh faces. They've got to get more of it because it's just what they have right now is not a winning combination.
I mean, I feel like the thing that's keeping Voss afloat right now is his pedigree. I mean, he was a great player. He was a Brownlow winner, wasn't he? I think he won the Brownlow.
He was a big player for Brisbane back in the day.
I mean, he's still, believe it or not, over 500 coaching at Carlton. I think he's one game over 500, but he's still over 500. Of course, where would his record be without all of these second half collapses? But I feel like that's really the only thing that's his life preserver right now is his history, because it surely isn't what's going on at Carlton right now.
No, and it's he's a guy in which I watch his press conferences and things like that. I like the way he carries himself around the media, and that's important to me, being a former media person. He seems to carry himself well. He takes command, takes ownership of it, doesn't throw players under the bus. I like to see that, which is why I haven't totally given up on him. But with the results we're seeing, it's going to be a lost season.
You've got to be close, right?
I would think you got to be very close.
No, I'm talking about you.
Oh,
Because you still have this optimism that I don't understand, to be honest with you. By the way, good on you. You've dropped some LBs, so you can get that Guernsey on. I have not dropped the LBs to get my Guernsey on. In fact, my rap name is Fresh LBs. And that's how it's been since basically Christmas. So I got to work on that. I'll give you that. Hey, West Coast. Let's talk about West Coast for a second.
Yes.
92-90 over Port Adelaide, a game that they were trailing for most of it.
And we watched this. They trailed. They were getting blown out. It was like a 24-25-1 in the first quarter while we were flipping back and forth between the NCAA basketball. And then it got so interesting. We said, heck with the NCAAs.
Yeah.
Let's stay and watch this game. And West Coast, jumped ahead of them, got ahead, and then had to hold on for the win. But it was a very impressive win for them. And they got 2 in a row now.
That's a really good road win for them, too.
It is. They're doing it with a lot of young players, and our boy Jake Jake Waterman, I think, with the
Mike
Billy
Diaz
Ray Cyrus haircut. The Mike Diaz.
Rambo. Mike Diaz, a Rambo, yes.
You got an old guy like him, and you got some young guys, and it's they were winning with a lot of these young guys, and it goes to show you that you can be bad for a while, but you're winning with this core. You're building up this core of young players, and they seem to be a fun team to watch right now.
West Coast, who, I mean, we basically made a plea in our first episode, not to be so hard on the Eagles. Okay, why you got to be like that to the Eagles? Why you got to say before they even play a game that they could go winless this year. Now, not only are they not even near the bottom of the ladder, they're one of 8 teams with 2 wins.
Yeah. In
the first 4 weeks of the season. In fact, if the playoffs started today, they would be playing in that new wild card round that they're going to have with places 7 through 10.
Yeah.
In fact, they would be playing the Demons in the first wild card game.
Perfect.
So now, with that said, and we'll get to the schedule here in a second, you got Sydney this week. So this is going to be one of those. I think this is going to be one of those. Who are we really?
Yeah.
Games, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be to see how they measure up. Sydney, Sydney have been off to a strong start coming off the bye. It's going to be a big test for West Coast. I don't know if they can hang yet with the upper echelon of the league, but that'll be the fun part of watching this weekend.
That is a home game. That's at Optus this week. So I would assume a good crowd.
Yeah.
For that contest. Other scores from the round: Geelong beat Adelaide 68-60. Collingwood all over Greater Western Sydney. Again, we're not seeing anything out of Greater Western Sydney. They get beat by 33 this week. Yeah. Brisbane woke up in the second half, got their first win of the year over St. Kilda, 113-80. Freo by 60 over Richmond, and it looks like Richmond is going to be the team that everybody thought West Coast was going to be.
Richmond or Essendon, and the only reason I give Richmond a little bit of hope is the way they played in the second half against Carlton. Then again, everybody's playing well in the second half against Carlton, so I don't know how good of a barometer that is. But Essendon, from the little bit I've seen of the highlights, Essendon looks like a bad football team.
Yeah,
and they're getting a lot of heat, especially their coach, and deservedly so.
Yeah, I mean, they ended up with a 12-point margin in the loss to North Melbourne, but honestly, that game wasn't even that close. I think it was a 30-point margin with like 5 minutes to go or something like that. So, I mean, and for all that was made, I got to say this before we go to the schedule. For all that was made about the fact that by the quirk of the schedule, the top 4 teams in the league were idle, we still had some pretty good games this past weekend.
We certainly did. And, it was a departure from week 0 when we were surprised by the disparity in most of the games.
Joe, it's called the opening round. Joe.
Forgive me. I'm used to week 0, opening round. But yes, the games seem to be more competitive, and you like to see that. You like to see games that, although I don't think unless you're the team that's coming back from way down to make it a good game or to win it, But I think you like to see a little more evenly matched play, like the Brisbane game against St Kilda. That was kind of back and forth until the fourth quarter,
Right.
when Brisbane's kind of turned the Jets on there, and their stars came out and they pulled away. But it's been some good games so far.
And as I recall, we did kind of make a note at the end of last week's show about maybe getting a good look at West Coast and seeing what they were all about. And they go to Port Adelaide and get that 2-point victory.
Yeah.
And again, we'll see a little more this week against Sydney, who, by the way, dropped in the ladder this week. I mean, not only did we have competitive games, we had ladder movement at the top. I mean, Gold Coast is still at the top. Western, right behind. They both have 12 points.
Yeah.
Freo, though, moves into third with their victory, about 6 and change percentage points ahead of Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
Hawthorn, North Melbourne, 5-6. The wildcard teams right now are Collingwood, Melbourne, West Coast, and Geelong. The rest of the one-win teams include Port Adelaide, Adelaide, Brisbane, St Kilda, Greater Western, and your Blues.
Yes.
Who, by the way, are the worst one-win team in the ladder.
Don't have to remind me.
Essendon, Richmond, bringing up the rear. So that gets us to this week's schedule. 8 games this week. Only 2 teams are off, St Kilda and Greater Western Sydney.
Yes.
We start Thursday, Brisbane and Collingwood. Brisbane, a 17.5-point favorite in this game.
I like the way Brisbane played in the fourth quarter. I think they're coming on. They showed their firepower. I like Brisbane. I really do.
I like that game too. That game is at the Gabba, so it'll be a rabid fan base cheering on the 2-time premiers. So that's the Thursday game. Friday, we have North Melbourne and your Blues, and your Blues are actually 8.5-point favorites.
They really are. I'm surprised by that. That's not the first half line, right? That's the total line.
I think when they make the lines for this, and I'm using DraftKings on this, they think about the entire game. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm pretty sure if I would have looked, the first half line would have been something like minus 50. Second half line would have been like plus 300.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
So do you like Carlton as the fade?
I guess, because I don't know how good North Melbourne really is. We
really don't, do we?
No.
I mean, blood aside and all that stupid stuff.
Yeah.
We got a glimpse of North Melbourne kind of being like West Coast, not being who we thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, I mean, who really are they? Are they the team that was beating Essendon by 30, or are they the team that ended up beating them by 12?
True.
You know what I mean? Adelaide Freo is the other game on Friday. Adelaide, a 3.5-point favorite.
I like Freo. Just
this one at the Oval.
I like the way Freo's playing. Although Adelaide, they had a little tough one last week, but they're still a team that was, they won what do they call it, the minor premiership last year.
Yeah,
they were top of the ladder going into the playoffs.
Right. The President's Trophy, if it was the NHL, right?
Yes. But they haven't really put everything all together this year, and Freo's look like they've been good in a little bit I've seen of them, so I'll go with Freo.
By the way, I'm with you on all these picks so far.
Okay,
just so you know, and we should mention that despite your heartache on Sunday morning, you did put together a 3-game parlay.
I did.
That you cashed out on.
Yes, I cashed out, won a whole $19.
Hey.
That's an example.
You know what? You can put together a quality breakfast casserole and cinnamon rolls on that kind of money. I just want you to know. 8 pounds of potatoes at Shop and Save on Wednesday at $1.99. Go check it out. Richmond, 10.5-point dog against Port.
I would think Port. Yeah, I would take Port on that.
I would too.
Yeah,
I would too. I don't think Richmond is getting enough on that.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
Yeah, the way Richmond. Yeah.
Okay, we talked about West Coast Sydney. Big game for West Coast. Mm-hmm. Who are they really? They're 27.5-point dogs.
I would be tempted to take them plus the points on that.
I kind of would too.
Although I'd be wary of what Sydney could do.
Well, I mean, if West Coast shows up like they showed up last week, I think this is a 40-point game easy.
Yeah.
I mean, West Coast, it was really in the second half of that second quarter and the second half where they really started coming together, started playing the way that they're playing, in their other win. So I think that's a tricky. I think that's a tricky line. I think that's a really good set line at 27.5 because that could go either way. I think Melbourne has a test. They get Gold Coast this week. They are an 18.5-point dog.
And Gold Coast coming off the bye week, I would say.
Coming off the bye, no Christian Petrarca reunion.
Exactly, no Petrarca.
Because he's out another month or so with the hammy.
Yeah, even without Petrarca, I like Gold Coast in this one. I think they cover.
Yeah, I think so too. I think you're right about that. Yeah. Those are the Saturday games. I'm sorry. Melbourne Gold Coast is the first Sunday game. We're not going to do the second Sunday game yet. We're going to skip ahead. Do the Monday game first. Hawthorn Geelong. Hawthorn a 10.5-point favorite in this game.
Geelong played in the grand final last year. Hawthorn was a surprise team in the finals last year. What was the spread again?
The spread is 10.5.
I think I'll take Hawthorn.
Yeah, I think Hawthorn. I think they can cover that.
Yeah, I think so too.
I totally think they can cover that. That one's at the MCG. That's at 1:15 on Monday morning. That's one of those Monday games that we were talking about over the weekend.
Yes.
And then the last one is Western and Essendon. And I saved this for last probably for the obvious reasons. The line.
Oh, my.
Western is a 70.5-point favorite.
Wow. I thought the 66.5
right
that I saw earlier in the year could not be beaten. 70 points. Wow. And a half.
I mean,
that's a lot of points.
How bad is Essendon? That's what you got to ask yourself.
Yeah. And does Essendon have the pride to pull out of that? You know what? I would take the 70 points right now, I think. I just think there has to be Essendon. I just can't believe is as bad. With some of the players they have.
Yeah.
I just don't. I'd have to. That's a lot of points. I could see them. I could see Western covering that, but I'd take the 70. I think.
Is there a little pride at play, given the situation they were put in last week against North Melbourne, and don't forgive the pun, the bad blood.
Yeah.
That they were put into.
Yeah, I think so, and I think they're going
to. Does that help them cover 70.5?
I would think. I would hope if you're them. I mean, you don't want to be known as down with the likes of Richmond at the bottom of the ladder, and yeah, that's a tough one. But yeah, I think you would get some kind of pride in there. And I mean, Western is one of the cream of the crop of the league, but again, they're also coming off a bye. Maybe they're not going to come out on full cylinders either. Maybe it'll take them a while to get going. But yeah, that's not one I plan to set the DVR to.
Yet it is one we will be watching.
Yes.
Knowing that 70.5-point line is in our heads.
Yes, exactly.
Final thoughts today, Joe.
Final thoughts. Back in the day, 25 years ago, I used to be more of a gambler. Not of the traditional sports, but of the four-legged variety. I used to bet a lot of greyhound racing. They have a track here about an hour away, and I would go to that. And how I'm tying this in is, you would have dogs, greyhounds, on the paper that would start fast, and then you would see on the line, and in life they would slow up and be caught as they're coming around the far turn, and it would finish out of the money. Those we would call faders. And then conversely, you had the closers, the ones who didn't always start the strongest, but by the end, you could count on them for making a late push and probably catching those faders at the finish line. Right now, to put this in my perspective, Carlton has turned out to be a huge fader. They're getting to that halfway point, third quarter pole, and just shutting it down and getting lapped by the opposition. I don't expect them to become closers, but they need to shed the fader label and become more like a closer. They've got to be able to have some type of consistency. That is my goal for this week against North, is to see them not be so much of a fader. Your final thoughts?
Now, before I get to my final thought, you are not going to finish your segment without touching on the fact that you had a dog named after you.
I did. And my Twitter handle is Trib Joe Rudder. I knew a guy who was a breeder there, and he had a kennel, and he named it after me. Called him I Know Trib Joe.
Right.
He raced for several years there. Then he went and got shipped around to some other tracks. Then apparently got adopted. At least I would like to think he got adopted. I'm sure no longer with us. Again, this is 20-some years ago. But yes, that was one of my pride and joys. And I carried it into my Twitter handle, where it's Trib Joe Rudder.
Very, very nice. Now, what kind of dog was he?
He was, he was a greyhound.
Was he a closer? Was he? What were the terms you said? What were the terms you used?
Fader and closer.
Fader and closer. Okay.
He was more consistent. He was a little bit of a closer. He never got up. He would win, and he could hold his own in the DCB class. You get him up in the A's with the big ones. He had some issues, and he'd usually get back down there. But you can say that about most greyhounds. Which, that sport, if you don't like the sport, pretty much outlawed in the United States now. There's only 2 tracks. In fact, the one in West Virginia close to us is still one of the 2 that's only open. They've outlawed them in Florida and Texas and Arizona and all the other states that used to have them. So, but that's a whole nother story.
Well, I'm going to stick with your dog analogy for my final thought. And my final thought will also touch on what we saw on Sunday morning. In that the Melbourne Demons, I don't know what kind of dog they are at this point. I don't know if they are a closer, and I don't know if they are a fader. They have the potential to be either one, possibly both. If it's both, this is going to be a long season. This is going to be one of those seasons where they're hanging around 9, 10, and 11. If they're a fader, we're going to see them with Essendon, okay? We're going to see them with Essendon and Richmond. But if they're a closer, which they showed in round 1, which was completely absent last week against Freo, and completely absent in the first half and change against Carlton. If they're going to be a closer, I would like to see them be a closer for the entire 80 minutes of play on the pitch. Now, they've got Gold Coast this week. They can't afford to come out of the gate as a fader. They've got to be closing. Was that Glenn Ross? ABC, always be closing. Yes. That's what Melbourne needs to do this week. They need to show the promise of this transition from the team they had last year to the Stephen King team they have this year. The youth, the speed. You're going to hear us talking about this all year. When those all get put together, that is the closer we're looking for. And Gold Coast will provide them enough of a test, of course, to see if they can have the closer brought out of them. Because I feel like that's how it's working right now. They can't just step on the field and be the closer they want to be. I feel like they have to have it being brought out of them at this point. And you know what? That's what happens when you're a young team. That's what happens when you're still in transition. That's what happens when you still haven't figured it out. So I just want to say, D's, I don't want to use the disaster hashtag anymore. I would like you to be a closer.
There you go. And I would close by saying, you get out to a 44-1 deficit against Gold Coast, you're not catching up.
Well,
do it against Carlton, you're not going to do it against them. So you need to start off faster.
What do you mean, Joe? What do you mean, Joe? What do you mean? Are you saying Gold Coast and Carlton are vastly different ball clubs at this point?
I would say that is definitely the case.
Well, guess what, everybody? We've gone for another 3 hours today, but that's going to be the end of our show. Thanks for joining us here on WTF What the Footy. You can find us on the socials. We're on Twitter X at WTF What the Footy. We're on YouTube at WTF What the Footy. We are on Facebook at WTF What the Footy. Like, subscribe, be our pals.
And now available on Apple Podcasts as well.
Thank you very much. That's right. Available on Apple Podcasts, so look us up there too. For Joe Rutter, I'm Robert Gregory. See you next time.
Showtime.
Oh, we can do a little banter today, huh?
Well, we could.
We got 6 seconds of banter to get us to another hour because we did such a good job.
We did
of keeping this as a short show today.
Maybe we eliminate the predictions.
Well, let me just say this: the AFL and its membership, shall we say, is making it terribly easy to do this show every week.
They certainly are. Yeah.
I mean, at any point in your life, could you imagine doing a show of any kind about somebody rubbing their blood on someone else's face?
True. And we, like I said, like you said, we wondered what we were going to talk about this year.
I know.
We have not been in a shortage.
No. So far. Yeah. You know, the only problem I've had is forgetting to put the ticker together. Which thankfully only takes about, 10, 15 minutes. So
as we found out this week.
Good for us. Yeah. Hitting the end button. There we go.